Buddhism, as one of the world's major religions, has evolved into a rich tapestry of schools and branches, each interpreting and practicing its teachings in unique ways. However, when we trace its roots back to Gautama Buddha, a prince who renounced his worldly life and attained enlightenment, we encounter the foundational teachings preserved in the Dhammapada. This collection of sayings attributed to the Buddha offers profound wisdom for those in search of inner peace. In this lecture, we will explore key Buddhist principles that guide us towards a life of tranquility and insight, echoing some of the core themes found in philosophical traditions like Stoicism and Taoism. Firstly, one of the fundamental teachings of Buddhism is the recognition that attachment leads to suffering. At the heart of this idea lies the concept that we, as humans, often bind ourselves to external circumstances and material possessions, which are, by their nature, impermanent. We tend to resist the truth that change is the only constant. For example, our youth fades, loved ones pass away, and even our professional successes, such as a thriving YouTube career, will one day come to an end. It is by accepting the transient nature of these aspects of life that we can learn to appreciate the present moment without clinging to it. The Buddha advised, "The good renounce attachment for everything. The virtuous do not prattle with a yearning for pleasures. The wise show no elation or depression when touched by happiness or sorrow." Thus, by releasing our attachments, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering and begin to experience a more peaceful existence. The second key teaching is about desiring the right things. Desire, or tanha, often leads to restlessness, but this does not mean that all forms of desire are harmful. The Buddhist path recognizes that even monks who renounce worldly desires still cultivate a deep desire for enlightenment. In fact, many of us are drawn to Buddhism because we desire relief from the suffering in our own lives. The important distinction lies in directing our desires towards wholesome and beneficial goals, rather than those that entrap us in cycles of craving and dissatisfaction. The Buddha illustrated this with the analogy of rain penetrating a poorly thatched house, representing how passion overtakes an undeveloped mind, whereas a well-developed mind remains protected. Now, let's consider the pursuit of sensual pleasures, which Buddhism teaches also leads to suffering. It's important to note that sensual pleasures are not inherently evil. However, when we allow our lives to be dominated by the pursuit of these pleasures, they can lead to greed, addiction, and moral decay. This indulgence often creates a fertile ground for Mara, the personification of desire, death, and delusion, who lures us into actions that perpetuate misery, both for ourselves and others. The Buddha wisely cautioned, "Just as a storm throws down a weak tree, so does Mara overpower the man who lives for the pursuit of pleasures, who is uncontrolled in his senses." In seeking sensual indulgence, we risk losing control over our actions, leading to destructive behaviors. From misery grows beauty. This fourth principle highlights a paradox. While Buddhism seeks to alleviate suffering, it also acknowledges that suffering can be a powerful catalyst for personal growth and transformation. The Buddha himself embarked on his journey to enlightenment only after confronting the profound suffering inherent in life. Similarly, in our own lives, suffering often brings valuable insights that foster greater compassion and creativity. As the Buddha poetically expressed, "Upon a heap of rubbish in the roadside ditch blooms a lotus, fragrant and pleasing." Just as the lotus rises from the mud, our suffering can give rise to wisdom and beauty. Next, we turn to the importance of good company. Both Buddhism and Stoicism emphasize the need to surround oneself with wise, virtuous individuals. The Buddha encouraged his followers to seek the company of those who are also on the path to enlightenment, as good company reinforces our commitment to virtuous living. However, for those unable to find such companions, solitude is preferable to keeping the company of the foolish or the unwise. As the Buddha advised, "Better it is to live alone. There is no fellowship with a fool. Live alone and do no evil. Be carefree like an elephant in the elephant forest." This underscores the importance of being selective about the influences we allow into our lives. A trained mind leads to happiness. Central to Buddhist practice is the cultivation of mental discipline, primarily through meditation. Meditation helps to quiet the constant chatter of the mind, allowing us to break free from the tyranny of overthinking and destructive thought patterns. Through consistent practice, we learn to detach from our thoughts and emotions, thereby becoming more present and grounded. This mental clarity allows us to experience life without being weighed down by the past or anxious about the future. The Buddha remarked, "He who delights in subduing evil thoughts, who meditates on the impurities and is ever mindful, it is he who will make an end of craving and rend asunder Mara's fetter." Thus, through meditation, we cultivate the mental discipline necessary for true inner peace. Lastly, it's crucial to remember that short-term evil has long-term consequences. Many actions that provide immediate gratification, such as indulging in sensual pleasures, deceit, or manipulation, may not result in immediate pain. However, over time, the consequences of these actions inevitably catch up with us. Whether it's addiction, loss of trust, or spiritual degeneration, we eventually face the repercussions of our unwholesome actions. Buddhism teaches the law of karma, wherein every action, good or bad, has consequences that may manifest not only in this life, but also in future incarnations. The Buddha warned, "It may be well with the evildoer as long as the evil ripens not. But when it does ripen, then the evildoer sees the painful results of his evil deeds." Therefore, our long-term well-being depends on cultivating virtuous actions in the present. In conclusion, the path to inner peace, according to Buddhist teachings, involves a deep understanding of the transient nature of life and a disciplined approach to managing our desires and attachments. By recognizing the sources of suffering and cultivating a trained mind, we can break free from cycles of craving and misery, paving the way for a more serene and compassionate existence. As we have seen through these teachings, the Dhammapada offers timeless wisdom that, when applied, can transform not only individual lives, but also society as a whole.